I think how I got to that space where I was able to release was really taking time to reflect on how far I came.
Beautiful.
And so I think when we are able to make space for ourselves to reflect on the journey and not allow and to realize rather that it was who we were and who we were got us to who we are. And
Yes.
we're still becoming.
Yes.
And so that story helped to shape us into who we are today, but there's still more to do.
Yes.
There's still more to strive for. There's still more, that we have yet to accomplish. And in carrying baggage of the old stories that no longer serve us, in the ways that may have served us previously,
Yes.
we can't get to who we're meant to be, right?
Yeah. Welcome to Sacred Stories of the Spirit. My name's Jordan. I'm your host. And in this episode, I speak with Ashley René Casey. She's a storyteller, coach, and corporate leader whose journey invites us to look at what truly matters. From becoming a mum at 18 to building a career in corporate America, Ashley's path has been one of constant recalibration, of learning when to fight, when to rest, and when to rewrite the story altogether. So we're talking about what it means to live in alignment rather than balance, how to recognize the early signs of burnout, and how compassion can transform leadership from authority into service. This is a conversation about presence, purpose, and the power of listening to the soul's quiet call for realignment. So let's dive in. I know you're going to love this episode. Well, Ashley René, welcome. How are you? And it's so lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's cold and wintry here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but not too cold, so that's nice.
It's almost 100 degrees here in St. Louis, Missouri.
Complete opposite. Yeah, well, yeah. And the evening, I guess. It's early morning here. Yeah, very nice. Now, Ashley René, tell me, how did you get to where you are right here, right now? Tell me a little bit about the story.
Yeah, so I have had lots of ups and downs throughout my life. I think part of the big catalyst that got me to where I am right now is I had my first child when I was 18, right after high school. And I was a single mother for a very long time until I was almost 40, when
Yeah,
I finally found a guy who was
yeah,
willing to, be by my side.
yeah, nice.
But throughout that journey of being a single mom and working corporate, different experiences that kind of helped to shape me and to form me. And
Yeah,
so a combination of single motherhood, working
yeah,
in corporate America, which is ruthless,
yeah,
and then kind of making the stance and taking the step of, whoa, hold on,
yeah,
and
yeah.
identifying what was important to me.
I think that sounds very sensible, actually. Do you think that there's a lot of women who get to a point in their career, maybe the way you have, maybe mid-career, and they do the same thing. They go, wait, hold up. Something isn't right. This has to shift. And for me, I've been thinking about it in the sense that, when we're young, we grow up with these ideas, these stories about who we will be in the world. And now in the world we are, it's such a different world and there's so many different things being asked of us. It really does require us to really stop and take note and think about things. But sometimes I think it's a bit of a surprise and it can be quite a strong sense that we're not necessarily equipped to navigate at the moment. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, growing up, I went to performing arts high schools, was a very high achiever. And so
Yes.
becoming pregnant at 18, like that flipped the trajectory of the story that I had been told, right? And so it was at that point, that was the first time that I had to kind of reconfigure the story in my head
Yes.
compared to what I was actually doing. And then the further along I got into my career, to your point, I started realizing, wait a minute, my kids are starting to miss out because I'm putting more of my time in this career, trying to mold my life into, again,
Yes.
this story of what, working in a corporate office looks like and what success looks like as well.
Yeah. What can you take me through that moment of arriving at that point of like, hang on, I've got to shift my thinking. I need to recalibrate my story. And what's the process that you've gone through to do that successfully?
Yeah. So when I was working in corporate America, I started off actually in a freight rail company. And so it was a 24/7 operation. And some of the positions that I held actually required me to be on 24/7. And oftentimes when we're working in that corporate position, again, we have that pressure that we feel to
Yes.
always perform. And so in working that 24/7 position, like we're always on, always trying to perform. And there were moments where like I was just I was done, I was burnt out, I wasn't spending time with my family, I wasn't spending time with myself. And so everyone was just getting bits and scraps and
Yeah.
pieces of me. And so it was kind of multiple moments of that where I finally was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I took a moment to step back and kind
Yes.
of reevaluate what was truly, truly important. And through a lot of reading that I had done, one theme that consistently came up was when people were on their deathbeds, they did
Yes.
not talk about their work. They
Yeah.
talked about the moments and the experiences and the people. And I didn't want that to be me going on my deathbed. Oh my gosh, I've done all these great things at work.
Yeah.
But the people around me didn't get me.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of, those were, like I said, a combination of those moments culminating to get me to that point where I was like, something has to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's challenging, but I think healthy at the same time. I think, I would encourage everyone to lean into those moments and really be with them because I think they can be quite profound in the shifts that result from them. But you speak a lot about alignment instead of balance. What is the difference for you and when did you first start kind of thinking about the difference between the two?
Yeah, well, words are very powerful. And one word, even though, or rather, multiple words might have a similar meaning, but it's just that it's a similar, not the same.
Yes.
And so when we think of balance, we think of equality, right? There's no way to have work life balance. And so, really, it comes down to having work life alignment, which
Yeah.
what that means is more so either my job is aligned with some of my values that I have, if we're lucky enough, right, to be in a workplace that's like that. A lot of people aren't, right? So if we are just working a job for the paycheck, then it also comes down to how do I create those boundaries to make sure that the work
Yes.
that I'm doing and the hours that I'm spending on it align with the life that I'm trying to build for myself. And what that can look like, when I was again working in the 24/7 positions, that would look like me communicating with my family and with myself honestly about what that means when I get a phone call. And conversely, communicating with my employer to say, these are my boundaries during this time. Like, for example, during dinner, this is when I have dinner. I'm not going to be available. Or, if I'm going on vacation, which this a lot of people mess up on this, going on vacation and saying, to the people who are still there, hey, these are the projects that I'm working on. Could you please, make sure that these get taken care of? Or if I have clients, communicating with those clients, I'm going to be out. That way we can completely turn off when we're, taking holiday vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds very sensible. And I like this idea of alignment instead of balance because I think for me, in my career, I've always had a creative practice. So my writing and my art practice has always really helped me feel a lot more sane in my 9 to 5 roles, in my leadership roles. It's helped me be very grounded and give me time for reflection. But actually, I can get that from maybe an hour in the morning in the studio. It doesn't have to be 50-50. So it's not like, I need 4 hours of art to do 4 hours of work. So I think it's a nice shift in language to make it a little bit more flexible and a little bit more true to what we actually really kind of need rather than just trying to do the checks and balances and evaluate logically.
Well, and unfortunately, we live in a time and place where everything is truly connected. And when we
Yeah.
look at cell phones, the very first cell phone became commercially available in 1983, and from then on out, it was all she wrote.
Yeah.
As soon as the corporations started giving people the cell phones, and then emails started coming onto cell phones, people are expected to communicate, immediately.
Yeah.
And that change in expectation, it used to be prior to that, we could cut off, turn off. But that's just not the case anymore. And so if we can shift our language, then it can make it a lot more.
Yes. What do you think that looks like in the big picture? So if people listening are thinking, well, how do I think about alignment in the sense of my whole career? What would you guide people to start kind of reflecting on to reach a point of, oh, this is what alignment looks like for me?
Yes. So I actually conduct a workshop because part of the pivotal moment for me was I had, as I was explaining that moment where I realized that I needed to align, I'm a
Yeah.
visual and tactile person. My kids were little at that time and there was Play-Doh laying around. And so I took the
Nice.
Play-Doh and I
Yes.
put it into different balls to represent where I was spending my time. And I made the balls to like represent not just where I was spending my time, but approximately how much time I was spending in those areas. Then I take it and then I would prioritize what were the top three things, where the top three spaces rather, where I was spending my time. And were those, was I spending the amount of time that I needed to spend there in order for it to feel important? The first step is recognizing that the top three things that are truly important to us. And then from there,
Yeah.
staving off what is not important or delegating to others, different aspects of it. So for example, we all have to clean our house. But if we have kids, maybe we could delegate a portion of our, the cleaning to our kids to do, right? Or if we're coaching a football or little league team or something, staving off and saying, okay, well, maybe I've already committed to it for this, season, but next season I need to say no just for my peace, right? And
Yes.
so identifying those top three things that are the most important to us and then kind of eliminating from there, either staving time off or completely eliminating.
Yeah. I think that's great. I love the idea of staving things off because it isn't absolute and final, is it? It may just mean I'm going to take a break from that for a period of time, but it doesn't mean I'm going to completely shut it out of my life. I'm just going to put that on the back burner or rest it, which I feel is nice because it's got that flexibility that we don't have to be black and white about everything that we're trying to
Sometimes it's
move
just
around.
not right now.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice. I'm interested to know what you think people should be looking out for in order to not get to burnout, to actually have to realize that they need to reassess and reevaluate.
Yeah, burnout is one of those things. I mean, when we think about burnout, we can visualize, an incense, if you will, and we burn that incense, and just slowly it starts to get to the end. That's kind of the same with us, right, as people, and that's what burnout can look like until we get to that very, very end where we don't have anything else to give. So subtly that can be starting off as, when I get home, I'm just going to sit on the TV, sit on the couch and just watch television and disconnect. And then from there, it can turn into I don't want to talk to anybody. And the people that I enjoy hanging around, even my kids, can't, with them right now until eventually, as we start to get to that very bottom of that instance, the very end of our rope, then it starts to look like frustration. It starts to look like anger. It starts to look like overeating or not eating enough until finally the
Yeah,
snap happens and
yeah,
we're completely done.
yeah. So I guess we need to know the signs at the beginning of the incense
Yeah,
burn rather
yes.
than at the end.
Yeah, and like I said, the subtleties are those stopping, not enjoying the things that we used to
Yeah.
enjoy.
Well, I hope you're enjoying the second series of Sacred Stories of the Spirit. This season, conversations traverse change, identity, and belonging, and they ask us how to live with more integrity, more courage, and more connection, both to ourselves and each other. Together, we're looking at what it means to live story as practice, to let story guide our healing, our growth, and our understanding of what's possible in the day-to-day. Stay with us as we journey through the landscapes of courage, authenticity, and transformation. So let's move on to the topic of leadership. What's your reflections on your leadership story? What do you think you bring to the world as a leader?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that I bring to the world as a leader is and has always been compassion. I don't prescribe to everyone being just a cog in the machine. We each have our own talents that we bring. We each have our own flair and
Yeah,
excitement that we bring to the table. And as a leader, I think it's always been important to me to see those things and to
yeah,
see my team and the people who are around me as the individuals that they are. Because again, going back to that alignment piece, right? And if I'm going to blend into your personal world outside of work, then you're probably going to bring your personal self into work, right? And so as a leader, I want to be able to see you. And
Yeah,
that's always been something that's important to me.
lovely. What do you think about the kind of phrase soulful leadership or spiritual leadership? What does you?
Yeah, I love that phrase, soulful leadership. Again, it goes back to seeing people for who they are and connecting with them on that soul level. Because again, when things are happening in our personal lives, it's almost impossible to disconnect that from the work life, right?
Yes,
And so if I'm able to see someone for who they are at their core, like on that soul level, then I can show them the compassion that they need as a human being to feel like, okay, if my parent is sick at home and I'm the one that's responsible for them and their health took a turn, I can't just shut that off when I come into work, right? And so being able to see an individual on that soul level, that human level, gives them then permission to, take care of what really and truly matters, which is, being human and in those things that are
yes.
messy in humanity and life.
Yes, thank you. One of the topics that I love to delve into in the podcast is really how do we take care of ourselves and each other on a soul level? You know, part of it is through telling our stories and our sacred stories. But also, I think there is a leadership aspect here, which is how do we take care of people on a soul level, particularly the people that we are leading, when so much of the world is going through so much transition. So it's one thing for us to be navigating it, but as a leader, what does that mean? And what are the tools that we should be thinking about there?
I think one of the things that is missing a lot today, especially in this world where so much is going on every single day, is listening.
Yes.
Really listening to somebody, not just, like hearing them, actually hearing what it is that they are saying, listening and taking it to heart, not just listening to wait to speak, not
Yeah.
just listening to wait to give advice, not just
Yes.
listening to wait to say, I told you so, or to judge
Yes.
or to make an assumption about. So often, when we are engaged with someone, we're waiting for our turn to speak. And in waiting for our turn to speak, we're not being mindful to hear what the other person is saying. And so I think that's one thing, that every leader should bring. And one thing that I think is desperately, desperately missing in our societal fabric today is listening compassionately to other human beings, even when it's uncomfortable, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes people say things that I don't necessarily agree with,
Yeah.
but if I can listen to understand where they're coming from, then perhaps I can try to meet them where they are.
Yeah. What is the next step after that deep listening? What do you do to calibrate what you've heard and then act on it in a way that is your role as a leader to do something about what you've heard?
Be curious,
Ah,
ask
yes.
questions.
Yes.
A lot of times, as we move through the world, we are moving through the world with our personal experiences. And
Yes.
oftentimes our experiences aren't the same experiences as other people. Like I had my kid at 18. Not a lot of people, can say they had a kid at 18. And that makes my experience different than, someone who had their kid, who has a kid at 40, right?
Yes.
And so in asking questions, that shows number one, that we actually were listening. And number two, it clarifies anything that, that might be muddy, right?
Mm,
And number three, it shows that person that we care because we're asking them the questions and giving them the space to speak, right? So following up to listening is definitely asking questions.
yeah, I love that. What a perfect response. Thank you. Now, let's move on to storytelling. Can you tell me, has there been a story that you've carried around of your own self that you've been able to release or, say that's something I can let go of now? And how hard was it if you've done that?
I think the story that sorry, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Uh, the story that I've released about myself was having the kid at 18, right? When that happened, I felt like I had to fight like hell, and I did, because I didn't wanna be a statistic,
Yeah.
especially, again, the schools that I graduated from. the school that I graduated from is a performing arts high school. There are doctors and lawyers, award-winning, talented people, and
Yes.
Tony award-winning talented people. And here I was having a kid. And I carried that with me and I carried it, one with a badge of honor, but more than that, it was a shield. Like had to go into the world every single day to fight. And it wasn't until I realized that, and this was probably about my youngest was in fifth grade, so almost 7 years ago. My kids are good kids. And I've done a good job,
Yes.
in being able to provide for them.
Yes.
And that teenage girl who made a mistake, she turned into this woman who did a really great thing. And so I
Beautiful.
didn't have to fight as much anymore.
That's lovely. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I love it. And I love that you've been able to release that story and be proud and see the wonderful job that you've done as a mum. Well done. Wow. Do you think that there's more of a role for us in being able to release those stories at the right time? You've done so in your own life, but do you have any guidance for others in how they can first be gentle with themselves, but also, honor their journey and not still be in the old place that they may have been, some time ago?
I think that's a great question. And it's not an easy one to do, right? I carried that
No.
one with me for a long time.
Yes. Yeah.
I think how I got to that space where I was able to release was really taking time to reflect on how far I came.
Beautiful.
And so I think when we are able to make space for ourselves to reflect on the journey and not allow and to realize rather that it was who we were, and who we were got us to who we are, and
Yes.
we're still becoming.
Yes.
And so that story helped to shape us into who we are today, but there's still more to do. There's
Yes.
still more to strive for. There's still more, that we have yet to accomplish. And in carrying baggage of the old stories that no longer serve us, in the ways that may have served us previously,
Yes.
we can't get to who we're meant to be, right?
Yeah.
There's a principle in Buddhism called impermanence. And it's basically acknowledging that there's nothing that's permanent in life. Everything changes and evolves. And in releasing those old stories that did help us at one point, it's allowing us then to change and evolve into the next level of who we're meant to be.
Yes. I automatically feel lighter just listening to you say that. So thank you. I think that's wonderfully wise. I think that you have given us so many beautiful insights today. I think it's a lovely time to wrap up, but I wanted to ask you, what are you working on now? What are you passionate about at the moment? And where can people find you to find out more about what you do?
Yes. So I love human beings.
Yeah.
And I love connecting people. And I really am passionate about the human experience. And unfortunately, unfortunately, technology has allowed us to connect with each other in an easier way, but it's also allowed us to isolate and not be present. And so I've
Yeah.
started a company called Presence Over Pixels. And my hope is to go in and help people to be more self-reflective, to recognize their own personal stories and live those stories out loud in real life with one
Beautiful.
another, how we're
Yeah.
designed to live. So you can see me at presenceoverpixels.com or at ashleyrenecasey.com.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for the lovely conversation, Ashley Renee.
Yes, thank you so much, Jordan. I appreciate your time today, and I love what you're doing.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, that's the end of another episode today. Isn't Ashley the most gorgeous person? I think her journey really reminds us that alignment isn't about perfection or productivity. It's about choosing what truly matters and letting go of the old stories that no longer serve us. Burnout fades when we remember that we're human first, we're not machines. And that leadership really begins with listening. I think that's a wonderful, powerful message for us all to take away. Ashley's new venture is Presence Over Pixels, and it calls us back to connection, to be where we are with one another in real life. Go to the show notes to find out more about Ashley and her links and information. And until next time, I hope you also have the ability to live your story in alignment. Take care, and see you for the next episode soon. If you're new to Sacred Stories of the Spirit, you might like to go back and listen to Series 1 of the podcast, Where the Journey Began. In this first series, we explore the transformative power of story and how the act of sharing, reflecting, and reframing our experiences can help us make sense of who we are. So if you haven't already, I invite you to take a listen, and hopefully you'll find something in each episode that's timeless, whether it's an insight, a question, or just a moment of recognition and reflection. Enjoy.